It's time for the Rose Chat Podcast, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the world's most beloved flower, the rose. Join award-winning gardeners Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington as they chat with rose lovers and experts from around the globe. With each episode, you'll gain valuable knowledge and insights to achieve the rose garden you've always dreamed of. Listen now as we explore the world of roses.
Hey friends, today I have with me one of our Rose World favorites, Dr. David Zlesak. Now, most of you know him from his work with roses, but did you know that this very accomplished rose hybridizer has brought many other plants to market? Well, if not, today is your day to find out. Hey, David, welcome back to Rose Chat.
Hi, Teresa. It's great to be with you.
Oh, it's so great to be with you too. Now, David, let's start out sort of at the beginning by talking about some of your early work with plants.
I love gardening since I was a kid, and my grandparents were a great reason for that. So I grew up in Milwaukee in the city with small lots, and my grandparents were on the other side of the state out in the country on a hobby farm by then. And a few times a year getting to go out there and visit with them. I was introduced to vegetable gardening, flower gardening, and back at home in Milwaukee, they gave me some plants, and my parents helped me too, just to get some plants and help me feel connected with them.
That is so great. You know, I've interviewed so many people through the years, and when I ask them that, so often it's a grandparent that inspired them to garden. It's so common.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a special relationship, so I'm glad you had that.
Yeah, thank you. And then, and I know you're a great mentor, and you love your grandkids very much too, and introduce them to roses and other plants, and it'll have a lifelong impact. It's incredible.
Okay, I hope so.
So I started growing different kinds of plants, some vegetables, flowers, house plants, and what especially was my week-to-week way to learn more about plants was at that point on PBS there was a weekly show called The Victory Garden with Bob Thompson, and I loved listening to it, and he would share about how to do different things, and I thought, it'd be really fun to try all these different things that he's talking about. So I knew I needed to try a tomato plant and lots of other sorts of very basic things that gardeners love to grow in their gardens. And through that, one week he had a show on roses. And so that was my introduction to know that I needed to get a rose bush, and that was 1980.
Oh my goodness. That's wonderful. We loved the Victory Garden here in our home. So yeah, we were connected even before we knew it.
And then my dad, I'd save up birthday money, Christmas money, and my dad took me to the garden center in the spring, and your listeners, and you might get a little giggle out of this. I think back to it and think, oh my goodness, that sounds pretty arrogant as a little kid. But we went to the garden center, and it was maybe the end of March, beginning of April, so there wasn't a whole lot in an active growth in terms of nursery stock. And I went there and I asked the person at the garden center, I asked him, where are your roses? And I don't blame him at all. He was really sweet. He took me to the greenhouse where there were forced miniature roses, and they were beautiful and they were in bloom. And my response to him was, where are your real roses? And he took me out to the back nursery area. They were freshly potted. They were, prickly dormant plants, and I was smiling from ear to ear and pointed to one that was kind of in the back, and my dad waded through to get it. And it was the old hybrid tea from 1935, Crimson Glory from Cordes of Germany.
Oh my goodness. I can't even believe this. This is great. And how old were you then?
I think I was like 9 or 10.
Oh, this is great. So you really are steeped in roses.
Oh, yeah, and it was that rose bush, that Crimson Glory that I grew year by year for a few years, and my dad was really sweet. He had an old canvas tarp, and he knew that roses, are kind of tender, at least in Milwaukee and in our colder climate. And so he let me have have one of his tarps, and we'd put a bunch of leaves around the rose bush and put this big old tarp over it and got it to survive year by year. So I just treasured that rose bush, and it was so fragrant and so beautiful. I have another crimson glory again today, and for just nostalgia. And actually, I had it in the greenhouse last year for some of the black spot research, and was using it for that. And my dad passed away in December, and there was a flower when it was time to bury him, so I brought it to the funeral, so that was nice.
Oh, that's so nice. So nice. And then you started studying about plants. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 1984, there was an article about Will Rattler. He used to be called Bill Rattler, now Will Rattler, his rose breeding hobby, and that was long before Knockout came on the market. And so I wrote to him, and that was a few years later, 1984, and he wrote back to me, which was wonderful, and got me started breeding roses, and he connected me with Elton Strack, who lived in a suburb of Milwaukee right near where I was. And Elton was in his 60s or 70s then, and he became like a grandfather to me, and I'd go visit him every week and learn about breeding roses, and that especially spurred on the idea and love of plant breeding and just exploring that whole area of plant science.
Oh my goodness. And you didn't stop when you went to college either.
No, yep. When it came time to graduate from high school, I knew I wanted to study plants, and my guidance counselor didn't understand horticulture and knew what that was, so he connected me to some resources for agronomy, which is great. And then in the midst of studying programs in colleges, they said you need to be a horticulture major. So I signed up for horticulture, and I had a cousin that graduated in horticulture before I started, and so she helped guide me for that transition too.
Oh, that's wonderful. All the mentors in our life, they make the difference, don't they?
They sure do. Yeah, so grateful.
Just when we don't know what's next, and they can lead us right by the hand and get us right where we need to be. So I'm so glad there was people there to provide that for you. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm grateful. And Will Rattler, he's been a dear friend ever since. And this last summer, it was really fun to be able to go down to Milwaukee and be with lots of friends of his and Star Roses and Plants to celebrate the 25th anniversary of his introduction of Knockout. So it was fun to get to know him as a kid well before Knockout came on the market in 2000.
I've got to meet him a couple of times, and he is a wonderful guy. And you know, he just did something very special. He really refocused and changed the world of roses for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, with limited resources, having that vision, asking, what if roses were healthy enough that we didn't have to always preventatively spray them, hardy enough that we didn't need to do extremes for winter care or other things. And they were as beautiful and low maintenance as many of our other landscape plants with the same level of care. And he made great progress with that.
I love when Paul Zimmerman says that roses are just a blooming shrub. You know, he takes the mystery out or the fear out for so many people just by saying they're just blooming shrubs. And I love that, and I appreciate that from Paul.
That's beautiful. That's great. Yeah. So I went to college for horticulture. That was wonderful. And summer jobs, I worked at the local garden center, a groundskeeper another summer. So that was wonderful. But all along the way, I'd breed roses every year, start new little seedlings under my college dorm bed that I lofted with some lights, and
I can see it. I can see it.
Oh, and Elton Strack actually really inspired me for selecting for winter hardiness to a greater extent and disease resistance. So Will, of course, did too. But early on, I just felt invincible. Like, yeah, we could spray roses. I'm young, I'm strong. I could, mound up the soil around their bases, do whatever it took to get them going. And and just love those gorgeous pictures of hybrid teas and floribundas in the catalogs. And then even with all that effort, I'd still lose some roses due to winter, and roses still got some black spot. So Elton Strack with his species hybrids, these big, gorgeous, often spring-only blooming roses, where he tried to bring in our native species, other very hardy genetics with modern roses. At first I thought, well, why are you devoting so much space for these big monsters that just bloom for a little bit in the spring? And you could have so many repeat blooming hybrid teas in that spot. And then I learned to appreciate them. And then it's really fun years later. Above and Beyond came on the market, and that definitely is a huge plant that blooms strong in the spring, maybe a little shy later, and actually has one of Elton's roses he collected on a fishing trip in eastern Canada, Rosa virginiana, as a grandparent.
How wonderful. It's one of my favorites in my garden. It's huge, and where it is, it can be huge. It's just a beautiful backdrop for the back of our garden. We just sit on the patio, and it's just dreamy. I mean, it just looks like the stuff of Rose dreams. So beautiful, so full. Maybe only a one-time bloomer for me, but for a long time. It holds on to its petals so well. So we get to enjoy it for a long, long time. It's a bright spot.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. And up here where it's colder, it overwinters as cane hardy, at least through zone 4, and in zone 3 it might get nipped back a little bit. It's like a hardy explorer series rose, like William Baffin, in a different color for us in the north, with the orange buds and apricot flowers.
You mentioned losing roses in the winter. I kind of forget that because it's rare that I lose any of the modern roses or any of the roses in my garden. I think we've gotten a little warmer too, but it used to be pretty common because we grew a lot of modern roses at that time, and a lot of them didn't make it through the winter, even in Indiana. So, I'd kind of forgotten about how many roses we actually did lose. Mm-hmm. And that's changed.
That's great. For me, the own roses, even of hybrid teas and floribundas that many of the nurseries are transitioning to in terms of propagation style, has helped a lot. We had a really tough winter last winter, and in the end I didn't lose too much, and I think own root versus grafted kind of helped with a little bit of a buffer too, so whatever came up from the base was still the rose cultivar.
Mm-hmm. And that's not something we heard about, years ago, but it has made a huge difference because, I do have roses that will die back to the ground, but I don't worry about them because they will come back. And even if they are to the ground, I've noticed they come back about as quickly as the ones that were, 2 or 3 foot. So they bounce back very quickly. So that is a nice addition to our gardens for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. And so after I graduated from college, I moved even further north into zone 3 to Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I worked for the Forest Service, which was wonderful. It was a few-year grant, and I got to do plant tissue culture and work with eastern white pine trees and efforts to understand and develop white pine that were resistant to white pine blister rust. And while I was up there, I became friends with the local garden center, Hanson's Garden Village, and Brent Hanson and his wife Sue are just wonderful and dear friends. And I helped them with their rose program, helped pick out varieties, and then in the back field, they were so kind, they let me have space. And I started growing roses and making some crosses and having some ground to put new seedlings. So one of the early kind of efforts, or at least at that time, that eventually led to basically the first roses I bred being available for sale, was some polyantha breeding and selection. So the polyantha roses with their cute little blooms in abundance generally aren't known to be hardy to zone 3. And I got some seed. Thompson & Morgan Seed Company were selling some polyantha seed. They just named them Angel Rose Polyantha Mix. And I wanted to do a seed germination experiment. And by that point, it was November, December, and I didn't have enough seed. I collected off of the roses in the field and also at my parents in central Wisconsin. So I ordered these seeds and used them for that experiment. And then I had all these seedlings and I planted them out there in Rhinelander, and most of them died, but there's like 5 of them that were hardy enough to be crown hardy in zone 3.
Wow.
And a few of them we propagated up and sold them through the nursery, and then they became the foundation of my hardier polyantha breeding.
Oh my goodness, and you have so many beautiful polyanthas now in the market. So do you still grow any of those roses? Do you still have them?
I still have one of them. I nicknamed the one that's become a key parent in a lot of the subsequent ones that did come on the market, Monica. On Help Me Find, it's 95-1 as its code number. And so at that point on the TV network, there was a show called Touched by an Angel, and the seed was Angel Rose Polyantha Mix, and Monaco is the main character. So I named them after, different characters or angel names.
I love learning how people decide what things are called. So did you name Above and Beyond?
I did, yeah. So brainstorming with Bailey Nurseries, they have a great marketing department. So we chewed on some different names. I forgot some of the other contenders, and then actually Above and Beyond came to mind because it's above us because you have to look up at it, and it's beyond our expectations. So I suggested that, and they loved it and went with it.
It is so well named because it is just outstanding and big and just gorgeous. So it is perfectly named, and I wondered if you came up with that. So that's great. You did.
Aww. Yeah, so ever since, I've, selected roses for disease resistance and hardiness, I'd plant out new seedlings outside and in garden beds where they're kind of stuffed close together, and let winter and let disease take its toll. And I try not to get too attached to a beautiful rose too soon, until I see it for a couple years and know that it's hardy enough and healthy enough. Then I let myself get more attached to it, knowing that it's faithful enough that I can enjoy it for years to come.
Well, you've done a good job at that because so many of your roses are truly they're just almost bulletproof. I mean, you've really released some really wonderful roses. So you're having to be a bit hard-hearted on it has paid off. I'm sure all of your babies, it's hard not to just get them out there, but your hard work and patience has paid off. So well done.
Oh, I'm glad I have a lot of roses in my garden that I know will never be commercial because they're lacking something or there's some reason, but they're hardy and healthy enough that I'm grateful to have them in the garden at home and propagate and share them with other friends that breed roses or would just enjoy them. And I know that I have limited resources to, raise big numbers. I'm not a competitor of Christian Bedard or Ping Lim or anything. I appreciate all that they do, but at home, the contribution that I could make is look for variation, bring in wild species, and then especially with colleagues and just resources at the university, be able to chase and understand black spot resistance genes and other sorts of genetic questions that could benefit other breeders and people with resources. And along the way, I get to explore and work with plant diversity, and now and then something out of my efforts is unique enough and ticks enough boxes that it's able to come on the market.
Well, tell us a bit about some of the roses that are on the market right now. I'm sure our listeners are going to want to be making a wish list. So tell us about some of the ones that are on the market now. We've talked about Above and Beyond.
Yeah. So the Pretty Polly series through Star Roses and Plants is currently on the market. So there's a beautiful pink one, near thornless white one. That near thornless white one was actually a seedling back in 1999, as well as Pretty Polly Lavender. So the white and the lavender are are actually both seedlings of Monica from years ago. And so I had those roses for about 20 years before there was interest from a nursery from Star Roses and Plants to introduce them. So I just love just the thought in terms of the market might not be ready. You enjoy things, you know, roses don't always have a straightforward, quick path to market. And Mayand also has that attitude. It's so fun. When I've gotten to visit Mayand International in France, there's fields of roses that have been around for a decade or 2 decades or more, and their attitude is, well, the market's just not ready for that yet, or the unique characteristics, and eventually maybe something does come to the forefront. So the pink one is a more recent one, but a pink, white, and a lavender in the series. So those are on the market. And then through proven winners through Spring Meadow Nursery, there's also Easy Peasy, which is also a polyantha that's kind of a darker raspberry pink color and a beautiful low growing, slightly spreading polyantha. So those are the polyanthas that are currently in the main sort of supply chains in the garden centers today.
I want to say just a little bit about Oh So Easy Peasy. It is absolutely gorgeous. And my neighbor wanted something bulletproof and beautiful in a blooming machine. And I got her Oh So Easy Peasy. It's absolutely fantastic. She knows nothing about gardening particularly, but this rose is just so, so beautiful. So if our friends aren't familiar with that, go take a look. The color, it's just really outstanding. It's a special one.
And talking about special roses, also special people, the variety name, the small print name, the trade name is also Easy Peasy, but the cultivar name in small print is Phyllis Sherman. She was a dear friend. I met her when I was in grad school. She was retired then, and she was a nurse at the local hospital, and she loved gardening. I met her at the bagel shop, and we were good friends ever since. And I loved gardening with her, and it was really fun to name that rose in her honor.
Well, that is so sweet. I love that. Gardening, we garden with our hearts, don't we? So much of the time we garden with our hearts. The stories just mean so much. I just love those times when someone comes and they want to walk through the garden, but they have time to hear the stories behind the roses. That makes them so special. Now, you've brought many roses to market, but with the ever-changing market, I'm wondering what happens to the roses that were on the market, then aren't on the market. So are they retired, or can you still get them, or what happens there?
That's a great question, and each rose has a different outcome, which in some ways is kind of sad when it's hard to find a rose anymore. But so what one wonderful outlet that we both know well is High Country Roses with Matt Douglas. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to Matt, and some of the earlier proven winner roses of mine that came on the market, Also Easy, or Also Happy Smoothie, Also Happy Candy O, and then Also Easy Petite Pink. Matt has allowed to come on the market through his nursery once again to remain available. And he, of course, has your Petite Peach, which is a sport of Petite Pink. And as we get to know different people in the marketplace and just see what opportunities that there might be, I'm excited that maybe, I won't spill the beans yet, but maybe a nursery that has more of a traditional supply chain getting into our local garden centers may be willing to pick up Petite Pink and Petite Peach and give them a second life through another supply chain.
Petite Pink is really one of my all-time favorite roses. I have several, as you know, and I think that's why God gave me Petite Peach out of one of your beautiful roses. I love this rose so much. It is so good in a vase. It's a miniature, and it's a spray rose, but it's so good to make to add to an arrangement. I love to dry it. I do a lot of dried flowers, and I love to dry that one. It's just again, we keep saying bulletproof, but it's just so easy and so pretty. And it blooms from, just like Petite Peach. They bloom, they're like the first to bloom, and they will bloom until frost. I mean, they're just such good bloomers. So for a shrub rose in your garden, you just can't beat those, I think.
I'm grateful that Matt's making them available. And Petite Pink was a surprise amongst the seedlings. So with the wide crosses that I make, because I bring a lot of species roses in, hardy shrub roses, I make pretty diverse crosses, maybe compared to the standard commercial breeders, because they have a very key market in mind, a red hybrid tea or this or that. So if they disrupt the apple cart too much with wild roses or roses that are a little bit less tame, they get a lot of roses that are kind of tall and gangly and awkward. So out of those populations with a lot of kind of awkward roses, it was really fun to see Petite Pink come about, where you have a mounded symmetrical plant, lots of blooms, it's well behaved. Really reshuffling that genetic deck of cards, allows for some of these very unusual roses to come to the forefront or just appear.
Mm-hmm. So nice. Now, David, there's another thing that I'm curious about. We were talking about the market and names and that sort of thing. We see roses that sometimes when they're reintroduced, they get reintroduced with a new name. Actually, last week I was talking to someone because I posted a picture of my beautiful The Fawn rose, and I don't know much about its parentage or anything, but I bought it as The Fawn, Faun. It's now sold as The Fawn, Fawn. And when I looked on Help Me Find, it's had about 5 other names. So how does this happen?
That's a great question, and there's different ways that happens sometimes. So across different cultures with different languages, that's one kind of traditional way that happens. Like, for instance, the rose Delish that we grow here in the United States, that beautiful, fragrant, deep pink rose. It's called, I might be mispronouncing her name, but Line Renaud in Europe, after, I believe it's an actress. So with different languages in different parts of the world, and the same rose being introduced different places, that's one main way why there's different names in different parts of the world that sometimes adds confusion. In addition, even within one language and maybe one continent or part of the world, sometimes the names change a little bit for other reasons. Like, for instance, with Petite Pink, it was first called Oh So Happy Petite Pink, and then they sunsetted the Oh So Happy series and moved it into the Oh So Easy series, and then it became Oh So Easy Petite Pink. And now, since Proven Winners retired it, and they own the Oh So Easy trademark, for it to be introduced by someone else like Matt, now we can't, or I can't, use Oh So Easy as part of its name. And thankfully, Petite Pink wasn't trademarked, so people already know it, at least part of the phrase or the name as Petite Pink. We're able to keep calling it Petite Pink, and then was able to leverage the knowledge of Petite Pink to come up with the name Petite Peach. It's interesting. And another example is there's a rose called Sun Rosa Red by Suntory, that little red miniature that won an arts award. And so Plant Haven, another company, picked it up, and they didn't want it to be recognized as Sun Rosa Red, and then they put their own name on it, just so they could emphasize their own supply chain and, I don't know, make a distinction.
Well, that's interesting. So I didn't know if that was, something that was trademarked, which a portion of Oh So Easy was, but not the entire part of the name. So I didn't know how that worked, but thanks. That was very interesting.
Yeah, it gets confusing. Yeah, all the different trademarks and so a company owns a trademark, and that trademark doesn't necessarily have to always be associated with one particular, in our case, rose. So for instance, every unique rose has a unique variety name, and that's that small print name that often is hard to even pronounce. And each nursery, often uses a few letters of their name, like Weeks, for instance, has W-E-K as the beginning part of that small print name, and then a bunch of letters and numbers after that, and that unique series of letters and numbers, or just letters, is associated with one unique rose. But then that commercial trade name that they put a lot of marketing dollars behind, they could at some point, dump the old rose and then sell a new rose under that same trademark, maybe an improved version. So it gets confusing because trademarks don't necessarily always have to be associated with one particular variety or plant. They could swap out what they're calling a particular variety. They could use that trademark name and then develop it into a series, like what happened with Knockout. So the original Knockout first came out, and then they called the original Knockout Original, and then use the name for a whole series of different colors.
Yeah, I love the idea of series. I think that, it becomes a trusted in more than one. And I do love that. But it does get a little confusing sometimes when, especially if you're talking to someone who's grown roses for a long time and they may have something in their garden that's the same. And I've had this to happen. It's the same as a rose in my garden, but a different name because I bought it later.
Mm-hmm.
So it is interesting.
And then sometimes names get reused, and then that gets confusing too. Like Ralph Moore has that beautiful miniature Ring of Fire, which is yellow with kind of a reddish edge. And then there's that beautiful, I believe it's a hybrid tea, that beautiful rich orange-red hybrid tea that's also called Ring of Fire.
Absolutely. Just a little confusing. You just have to know, I guess.
Yeah, Help Me Find is a great resource to help us, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I actually went there, I was thinking about our talk today and just saw all of the roses that you had hybridized, and it was so fun to see them all together. So I appreciate all that they do with Help Me Find. Well, David, let's shift gears a little bit. So you have brought us some incredible roses, and you're still working on roses. But let's talk about some of those other plants that you've brought to market that might not be something that our listeners know about.
Yeah, over the years, with that eye of asking, well, what if? What if we had a dwarf Heliopsis or a 9-bark that's more compact with dark foliage? And I would, begin down those directions and just see what's possible. So one of the first plants that I co-bred with my friend Brent from Rhinelander, the gentleman, him and his wife Sue, that have Hanson's Garden Village, was a dwarf Heliopsis that came on the market as Tuscan Sun. So the story of that is that at the nursery, a previous employee, she unfortunately passed away before I started, so I never got to meet her. She found a variegated Heliopsis with green and white foliage, and that became the variety Lorraine Sunshine after Lorraine Marks. And in looking at the variegation, I thought, I wonder if this could be transmitted by seed. And could we develop a double-flowered variegated Heliopsis? And then I started in that direction, crossing Lorraine Sunshine with double-flowered Heliopsis. And out of the seedlings, we did find that variegation could be transmitted by seed, and we found some double-flowered ones. And we raised thousands of Heliopsis seedlings, and in the end, we had a number of double variegated ones, and by chance, this dwarf green one came about. When Brent and I reached out to different perennial nurseries specializing in herbaceous perennials, they didn't seem to be too excited about a double-flowered variegated one, but the dwarf green one really piqued their interest. And at that point, about the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, that's when Proven Winners started a new branch of their business from vegetative annuals to including herbaceous perennials, with Walter's Gardens coming on board. And Tuscan Sun became one of their very first herbaceous perennials. It blooms reliably from cuttings the first year, so it behaves kind of like an annual even. You could sell it in flower from rooted cuttings that same spring. And then, of course, it's a wonderful herbaceous perennial. I've done more breeding work to try to bring in red petal bases and other variation that came about in Heliopsis, but I've just been kind of slow with limited resources. So Gelato Seed and others have beat me to the punch with beautiful red petal based ones that are dwarf, and there's even a seed strain with variegated foliage called, I believe, Sunstruck. So I stopped actively breeding Heliopsis to focus on other things, but that was one of my early introductions with Brent. And then beyond that, in 2000 is when the very first purple leaf 9-bark came on the market, Diablo. And Diablo has an interesting history. As we read its patent, it was actually a stray seedling in 1969. And if I understand the patent right, there was a German nursery growing our North American native species. They had like an acre of 9-bark, and they were raising it for bird seed, the little seeds. And amongst all their thousands of plants, there was this mutation that had purple foliage all summer. And Diablo is a large growing plant, 8 to 10 feet tall, big leaves. And when I saw it in 2000, I thought, oh, this is beautiful. And nearby in the landscape, I saw a plant of the variety called Nanus, which is a compact 9-bark with little green leaves. It's well branched. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to get that purple foliage on a more manageable, compact plant like Nanus? And that started me off breeding 9-bark. I made the cross. Amongst the seedlings, half of them were purple, so I knew that purple was heritable, transmissible, and they were all kind of intermediate in growth. And in 2004, as my first generation hybrids were maturing, that's when Spring Meadow introduced Summer Wine, that purple 9-bark that was just like the hybrids that I had, intermediate in growth between the two and purple. And I thought, well, Summer Vine and my hybrids still weren't as compact as Nanus, so I didn't give up. So I back-crossed my best hybrids with Nanus and got a new population, and that's where Little Devil came from.
I remember the first time, I think I was at Lowe's, and I was reading a 9-bark label. And, I was reading all these labels to try to decide. And I saw that little name that we talked about earlier that had a ZLE. And I thought, I think this is David's. And I didn't even know you were doing them. And so I think I texted you right then. And you said, yes, that's one of mine.
Aww. And that's really fun. The rest of the name, Donna Mae, after my mom. She loved purple and the purple foliage. And she got to see it in the garden center before she passed away, which was great. And Little Devil, it won the People's Choice for Best New Plant of the Year in 2011 by the American Nursery Landscape Association, and so that was I don't know, a wild surprise, So people have loved it because of its compact habit, purple foliage, well branched growth without extensive pruning.
Well, it's 3 to 4 high in height and width, and it's hardy to 3 through 7. So this is just a great size plant to have in your garden. I remember having a 9-bark many, many years ago, and I'm sure it was 10 foot. So I'm not sure the varieties before I knew those things, but to have something compact is just perfect for our gardens today.
And I didn't give up. I kept going with 9-bark. I still have some interesting 9-bark seedlings. So altogether, there's 8 9-bark varieties on the market. So Little Devil became the parent with a golden leafed 9-bark of a small golden leafed one, Raspberry Lemonade, and then a bicolor one with a golden background and a purple overlay, Sweet Cherry Tea. And then they came out through Plants Nouveau. Bailey's, who introduced Little Devil, they saw them first, and I gave them a first chance with them, and they thought maybe a yellow could be a little deeper yellow, and they thought they weren't quite there yet, but I still love them, and then I thought they were a great advancement. So Plants Nouveau introduced those, and then the next generation of 9-bark seedlings, that's where Bailey's selected Lucky Devil and Spicy Devil to round out the series. They also selected a little larger leafed one with rich golden green leaves that is called Honeycomb, which is an advancement of the classic Darts Gold that has a little more powdery mildew resistance and a little stronger yellow at times of the year. And then with Plants Nouveau introducing Raspberry Lemonade and Sweet Cherry Tea, they had them under trial with a nursery in British Columbia, Van Bell, and they have the Blooming Easy brand, and they wanted exclusives on those, but Plants Nouveau said no. And then later, talking about Plants Nouveau, we sent them another golden one and another bicolor one that just came on the market the last couple years here. 2 years ago, Calico Kitty came on the market, and that's a bicolor one that has golden green leaves with purple overlay, so the new growth looks kind of orange and warm, and then it turns purple, and that one is the most reblooming 9-bark of all that I have. It blooms pretty strong later in the summer again. And then Cougar Cub, its partner, is a little leafed golden yellow one that as the season goes by, the stem length or the space between each leaf becomes a little more compact, so it has a real dense outer perimeter.
I'm looking at pictures of all of them, and they're so unique and different. But I've got to tell you, I think my favorite is Raspberry Lemonade. I love the coloration. Love them. They're all beautiful, but that one's kind of catching my eye special way.
The fruit, as it turns kind of reddish after it flowers, is just beautiful. And so bouncing around names, it's hard to come up with new names that aren't already taken, that people have trademarks on. And the idea at first, with Linda and Angela from Plants Nouveau, they suggested names of alcoholic beverages. And I was just kind of brainstorming, thinking, I want something PG, something for everybody, the Garden Refreshment series. So Raspberry Lemonade and Sweet Cherry Tea came to mind, and they liked it too and went with it.
Great names. Good job. I love it. I love it. Oh, they're just so pretty. And I'm just looking at all of them thinking, there's just a place in the garden for these. I just wasn't aware that there were so many, and they're just really, really nice. I love the compact, the mounding habit, and the colors are just things that they make such good complements with our roses to add more structure. I just really, really like them.
I feel like I've kind of exhausted the variation in 9-bark. I got some other species of 9-bark from Western U.S. and also Asia, because all of these cultivars are from our Eastern 9-bark. So it's fun working with a native plant. And these other species are so similar, and I started crossing with them, and I just haven't found anything that's too different from what is already in hand. So I haven't given up totally yet, but I feel like the 9-bark breeding is slowed down.
Well, they're beautiful, so well done. Now, something new that I just found out about this year is a hydrangea with your name on it.
Yeah. So, and this hydrangea is also a North American native, so that's really fun too. It's our native smooth hydrangea, Hydrangea arborescens. Sometimes they're called snowbell types. Annabelle is a classic cultivar, Annabelle types, and it's flowerful. And so flowerful hydrangea just came on the market this year through Bailey Nurseries. So working with Bailey's, they're here in the Twin Cities area, real close to where I live, just a half-hour drive away. And they're wonderful partners. They're great advocates for education for students. We're actually gonna go on a field trip next week, the plant propagation class and I over there, and they hire a lot of my students as interns and for full-time jobs. They're just great partners. And of course, other nurseries are Two-Star Roses and Plants, Fen Bell, all these others are wonderful too. And so Bailey's wanted to build a breeding program for smooth hydrangea. And they have a breeding farm in Georgia, and Michael Durr bred a number of the subsequent endless summer hydrangeas. They bought his farm, his germplasm, but Georgia's a little too hot for smooth hydrangeas to do well, a little too warm down there. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to do the breeding up here in the north. And they're happy with me. They think I'm a good breeder with the 9-bark and the roses and other things. And so they reached out to me to work on the hydrangea breeding program. And Gail Sowen's a dear friend who heads up their trial program, and I together did the chromosome doubling and other things that we've done in order to set these hydrangeas apart. And over the years, we've raised over 40,000 hydrangea seedlings. And Flowerful is the first one to come on the market. And oh my goodness, Teresa, it sets the bar high. One of the challenges that we have is which hydrangea to release next, because we set the bar so high with Flowerful.
It's beautiful, David. It's just in its perfect size, 3 to 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, and the zone hardiness 3 through 8. And when you say a smooth hydrangea, that means it's always going to bloom on new wood, right?
Yeah, it'll bloom on new wood as well as old wood. So we could cut them down to the ground and they'll resprout up and bloom on new wood. And then if we leave some old wood, we'll just have even more flowers. So smooth hydrangea is kind of interesting. It's almost kind of intermediate between a woody plant and a herbaceous plant. It spreads over time with its crown a little bit, and you could hack them down to the ground. Or you could, let them overwinter and do rejuvenation pruning, getting rid of the oldest stems after a few years.
Now, what about sunshade?
In nature, smooth hydrangea is kind of a woodland edge plant and also kind of a woodland opening as trees fall down. So they're somewhat shade tolerant, but when they're in more shade, they don't bloom as prolifically, have as many branches. So for our breeding, just because we didn't have a lot of shade, as well as we know that sometimes in the sun they kind of burn, or out in the open with a lot of wind they get a little floppy. We raised our seedlings. We put our advanced selections out in the open field with lots of sun, lots of wind, and we really put them through the test to be able to not flop, tolerate bright sun. So when we grow them in partial shade again, of course they do just great, but we've really put them through the test. And what makes Flowerful a step above is that it branches really well. It has dark foliage. It blooms precociously or early. So in a pot, it blooms great. So landscapers, as they plant it at their job sites, they don't have to tell the homeowners like what you have to do sometimes with Annabelle and some of the others on the market, like, oh, next year it's going to have a lot of flowers and look like this picture. It's full of flowers in a pot when you sell it.
Wow. That is special. It is so pretty. I'm so happy about this. It's so pretty. I mean, That's probably just one of the best combinations is roses and hydrangeas. I love hydrangeas with roses. So it's just a good combination for our gardens. So thank you so much for Flowerful Hydrangea.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be part of it, Story. I feel honored to work with the great team at Bailey's. And one thing that just blew our socks off too is the American Nursery Landscape Association merged with the Ohio Florist Association to become what we know today as AmeriHort. And they sponsor the Cultivate Conference every year. Mm-hmm. And they've continued with the American Public, or was it American? I'm getting my organizations mixed up, the National Garden Bureau, to come up with a new award. And Flowerful won the Best New Plant of the Year, People's Choice for a Shrub this year. So having 2 national award winners as the Best New Plant of the Year, is just an amazing honor.
Oh my goodness, David, this is just wonderful. I'm not seeing it in person. I'm just thinking, I have got to have this. I mean, just the pictures alone, it's just so pretty, so pretty. And to know that, it's hardy, I'm excited about it. Very excited. So you said it set the bar high. Does that mean we can expect more?
Yes. There's more on the horizon. I don't want to spill the beans too much. Just because I don't think I'm supposed to, but there's plans for new introductions in the years ahead here, and so we have them all in hand. But it's just really fun to learn more about marketing and strategy. It's great for me partly to share with the students as I sit in on meetings and visit with the team at Bailey's to learn why and how things get introduced. But we have a lot of good stuff that meet a high bar for the years to come.
Oh, good. Well, I was just thinking, looking at the picture, wouldn't this be beautiful as a hedge?
Yeah. And one thing that makes Flowerful, I think, extra valuable is the goal isn't the largest flowers possible, because when you have larger flowers with the rain and the wind, it makes them more susceptible to flopping. So there's a lot of medium-sized flowers. Gail and I counted over the years replicates of Flowerful, Annabelle, other market standards, and Flowerful has 3 times as many flowers as Annabelle. So having flowers that are 7-8 inches across, that are beautifully, perfectly formed in great abundance, sometimes is better than a fewer, larger flowers. And then the plant holds its form even better, and you could have that perfect uniform hedge, 3 to 4 foot tall plant. It's just beautiful.
Boy, you've got me thinking. It's exciting. I'm so happy for your awards. Well done, and so deserved.
Thank you.
So let's see, what do we need to talk about now? So what's next? So what are you doing in your spare time?
I have a little bit of dogwood breeding. So this year, Winter Spark dogwood came on the market through Star Roses and Plants. It has above average resistant to leaf spot, which can be a challenge with red twig dogwoods. And Winter Spark has a beautiful winter color that's just a vibrant red. And the plant repeats flower throughout the season. And there's some other dogwoods that do that, like Cardinal can do that sometimes too. But that's really nice, because then you get more flowers and those more beautiful white fruits that the birds love to come and eat. So Winter Spark stays compact partly because the stems terminate in more flowers, and so it leads to more branching. So I'm really excited about Winter Spark, and I have some offspring of Winter Spark trying to get dogwood with different foliage colors and other habits to try to make a series as well. So sometimes, just like you mentioned, some plants get their name changed in different parts of the world. But one thing that's kind of fun, the pretty pollies were just introduced in Europe this year by Mayond, and they swapped out. There's a different white polyantha that they're using in Europe. So sometimes the same trademark gets used with different roses in different parts of the world. So that's an interesting example. Otherwise, I'm enjoying a little bit of breeding with elderberry and catalpa trees. But I just always love asking, what if? That creative kind of energy. What if we had a plant that combined these features? Could we push the limits of hardiness or health, especially, so more people can enjoy them? What native plants, especially, can we work with and bring to the market, like these 9 barks and smooth hydrangea? And then I, of course, bring in native roses a lot too into the rose breeding.
Wonderful. Now, speaking of roses, I know you're doing a lot of research. Tell us a little bit about that work too.
It's slow but rewarding. So with black spot is a problem around the world wherever there's a humid climate, a humid time of the year. And so working with folks at University of Minnesota, Texas A&M, we're trying to understand the black spot resistance genes. And when we do so, then we could more strategically help empower breeders for what kinds of crosses to make to combine different resistance genes to reinforce resistance. And actually, a lot of the genes that we've been studying are in Will Rattler's germplasm, his roses, because he did such a good job, and he continues to do selecting for disease resistance as he brings together very diverse rose germplasm to come up with his new hybrids. And actually tonight, before our chat here, I was working in the lab with Suzanne, who's an undergrad student of the American Rose Society, very generously is providing some grant money to help continue the black spot research, and that's helping pay for some salary for her to work on the project with me, and some supplies in the lab for us to complete some of the projects to be able to give breeders tests and tools so they could test for the different black spot resistance genes.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's something that we all just, look forward to, is when we can eradicate that one thing that just we all seem to deal with. But so many of our new roses are resistant, and we can thank you and many others for that as well. So that research, I know you say it's going slow, but boy, it's so valuable, and we sure appreciate it.
It's fun to be a part of and get little glimpses of understanding here or there, little revelations, and I'm really excited too about the rose rosette research that's being done in Tennessee, especially in Oklahoma, where there's a lot of rose rosette pressure. And then, of course, Texas A&M has a big role in that too. And a lot of the species hybrids that I generated over the years with our native species, I propagated and shared with them to put in those trials. So it seems like Rosa satigera, Rosa palustris, some of our native roses have some resistance. So I'm excited to hear the results of that, and hopefully we can make good progress in that arena too.
Boy, I hope so. And that work is just very valuable. We've come a long way, but we have got a ways to go. But thank you for that. Well, David, I just can't thank you enough for all the beautiful plants you brought to our garden, all the research you're doing, your work with the Arts Rose Trials, the Clean Plant Network. These are things we didn't even touch on today. You're just such a valuable part of our community, and we so appreciate you.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate you and others too. We're all in this together for the roses that we love, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy roses no matter what challenges come our way over the years through continued research and opportunities.
Gardeners love a good challenge. We're not easy to discourage.
True.
So true. Well, it was so great to catch up, David. And friends, we're so glad you joined us today. And maybe you have some new plants for your wish list.
You've been listening to the Rose Chat Podcast with Chris VanCleave and Teresa Byington, expert rose gardeners who want to help you achieve the rose garden of your dreams. Don't miss an episode. Listen anytime on our website at rosechatpodcast.com or listen on the go via the Rose Chat app on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Share this podcast with your social networks and join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by using the hashtag Rose Chat. Join us next time for another edition of the Rose Chat Podcast. The Rose Chat Podcast is a production of the Rose Chat Media Group, Birmingham, Alabama.